Hey everybody, it is Gordon Majak here, back with another episode of Timeless Pop, Rock, and Soul. And today I need your help. I am dealing with a situation here, musically speaking, that has me just completely perplexed. It seems like the more I think about it and the more I analyze it and the more I try to get to a bottom of it, the deeper it goes and the worse it gets. So maybe you guys can help me out with this. The problem is that I have a mental association with this artist that we're going to be listening to today. That is Frankie and the Knockouts doing their great hit tune from 1981, a song called Sweetheart. The problem is that, on one hand, I absolutely love, in capital letters, I love this song, always have, always will. I think the world of it, as you will see in the video. But here's my problem. Somehow, some way, and as I said, I cannot seem to get to the bottom of this. I have a mental association with this song that I just cannot seem to break. It doesn't make any sense. And so that's where I'm going to start. And let me work the backstory of that a little bit. And then we'll jump into Frankie and the Knockouts and hear for ourselves what exactly is going on in this song that is just driving me crazy. So, here's where we're going to start. Let's start by talking for a minute about the group Toto. You guys all familiar with the group Toto, right? Okay. I'm going to mention to you here the top 5 biggest hits of Toto's career. Okay, these are their top 5 biggest hit singles of Toto's career. I'm going to read them in chronological order of when they came out and when they made their splash as hit songs. I'm not going to mention them in the order of how big they are, hits-wise, okay? All right, Toto's first big hit in its top 5 hits of all time was back in 1978, the fall of 1978. Toto had a top 5 hit with a song called Hold the Line. Remember that one? Okay, that was 1978. For the next batch of songs to fill out Toto's top 5 hits of all time, I should say, we jump up to the spring of 1982, okay, about 3.5, 4 years later, and that was that great song, Rosanna. What a classic, right? Rosanna got all the way up to number 2, okay? A number 5 hit with Hold the Line, a number 2 hit with Rosanna. A few months later, there in the fall of 1982, Toto had their biggest hit song ever. That was, of course, Africa, a number 1 pop hit and a number 1 adult contemporary hit. All right. A few months after that, in the spring of 1983, they had another big hit, a top 10 pop hit single with a song called I Won't Hold You Back. That's the Steve Lukather ballad. Also made it up to number 1 on the adult contemporary chart. And about 3.5 years later, they did the same thing again, another beautiful Steve Lukather ballad. And my personal favorite Toto song, a song called I'll Be Over You, made it up to a number 11 on the pop chart. And that also went to number 1 on the adult contemporary chart. Okay? So there's a brief look at Toto's 5 biggest hit songs. Hold the Line, Rosanna, Africa, I Won't Hold You Back, and I'll Be Over You. Now, if you're familiar with Toto at all, I'm assuming that you can hear at least 1 or 2 of those songs in your head, right? Off memory. Hold the Line, remember that one? Rosanna, Africa, everybody knows Africa. That thing's been just killed. And I'll Be Over You, as I said, my personal favorite. I think most people, if you're familiar with Toto, you can probably hear 1 or 2 of those songs in your head, right? And they span, as I said, from 1978. And then we have to jump up to 1982 when Toto really got hot there in the early 80s. And then that's where we get the rest of their top 5 biggest hit songs. Okay? Now, here's the weird thing about this. Now, when you think about Toto, you think about certain elements of the Toto sound per se, right? You know, with Toto, that what they're playing is always going to be, it's always going to exist in a broader framework that you would call accessible, right? Toto's not playing so much weird, just completely outside obnoxious stuff that the moment their song comes on, you just want to turn it off because it's so annoying and obnoxious, right? Their music generally exists in a framework that you would call accessible. It's pop music, right? Pretty adventurous pop music and highly progressive pop music at times, but it exists within a pop music framework. And with Toto, you know what you're always going to get. You're always going to get high quality songwriting, high quality arrangements, great production, and of course the players, the musicianship is off the chart with those guys. And so many of the guys in Toto over the years, including Steve Lukather and Jeff Porcaro and Steve Porcaro and David Page. Those guys have been on so many hundreds of hit records by other people that we already know that the Toto guys are just legendary musicians, right? So on these Toto 5 biggest hit songs here of Toto's career, if we were to sort of try to establish what their musical personality is, you know it's going to be a great arrangement, great production, good songs. The musicianship is off the chart. Strong vocals. There's going to be a lot of dynamics and a lot of interesting changes in the songs. Everything is exceedingly well played. A high quality product all the way around, right? And that's how I would sort of typify the Toto sound. It's got elements of rock in it. It has elements of pop in it. They occasionally go off on these improvisational little trips where there could be elements of jazz weaving in there. It's got elements of soul, certainly. But as I said in the beginning, it exists within a certain pop or rock, you might say, pop or rock framework, right? That's Toto. Okay, now, here's what I don't understand. The artist that I'm going to play for you today, Franke and the Knockouts, and that song called Sweetheart from March of 1981. That is Franke himself, Franke Previte, right there in the middle with the porn stash and the leather and the whole thing. He is the lead vocalist, and he is also the chief songwriter in the band Franke and the Knockouts. And again, this is 1981. A bunch of cool dudes from Jersey put together a band, Franke and the Knockouts, with Franke up front. And this is their big hit, Sweetheart, right? Sweetheart, a top 10 pop hit for Franke and the Knockouts, got up to number 40 on the adult contemporary chart and number 27 on the rock chart. And here's where the weirdness ensues. When I think in my head, going back to Toto for a second, when I think in my head that quintessential Toto, if you think of the Toto universe, what are all of the musical possibilities that are going to be going on, musically speaking, in any given great song by Toto or any given great performance that they might be doing, right? Or even sections of songs, right? When you just think about those quintessential Toto moments, right? There's certain things that musically come to mind, as I mentioned a few minutes ago. Well, here's the thing. Franke and the Knockouts, this song came out in 1981. So the only big hit that Toto had prior to 1981 was the song that I mentioned at the very beginning, Hold the Line. And that was from October of 1978. And Toto had a top 5 hit with Hold the Line. Okay? So that was 3 years before Franke and the Knockouts did this song, Sweetheart, right? But those other 4 biggest and greatest songs, maybe not the greatest, but the biggest hit songs of Toto's career, Rosanna, Africa, I Won't Hold You Back, and I'll Be Over You, they all came in 1982 or later, okay? So there was no, how can I say, like a template, okay, or a foundation. Now, certainly that belonged to Toto at that time, right? Toto had not yet really established enough of their identity or enough of their sort of signature sound. That's what they did there in 1982 going forward, right? That's why Toto 4, the album that came out there in 1982 that had Rosanna and Africa and I Won't Hold You Back on it. That's why that album won all those Grammys and got all that attention and was so highly acclaimed. That was sort of the lifetime achievement recognition there for Toto, for those guys having paid their dues as a band, but even more importantly, the contributions that the individual members of Toto had made in the business, as I said, with so many other big artists and big albums and big songs and big studio performances, as those guys were all great session players, right? That's where I even found out about Toto back in the day, before I ever knew of them as Toto. I knew of them as the band that did that great Boz Scaggs album, Silk Degrees, back there in 1976. And then the follow-up album to that, Boz Scaggs Down, To, and Then Left. That was basically the Toto guys all over those old Boz Scaggs albums, even before anyone knew of them as Toto. So those guys eventually became Toto, right? And so the problem here is, as I said, I can identify a certain sound in my head that is a Toto sound. The problem is that every time I hear this Frankie and the Knockouts song, which I absolutely love, as I said, this song, Sweetheart, the first mental association I make every single time is I always think to myself, this is the best song that Toto never did, right? This song, Frankie and the Knockouts, sounds to me like, and I'm talking like exactly dead on A+, 100%, the quintessential Toto sound. And you might say, except possibly lacking, it doesn't have like a great Steve Lukather guitar solo. Okay, the Frankie and the Knockouts song does not have a guitar solo. It has an incredible synthesizer solo that, again, would have been beautifully, perfectly at home on a Toto album. It sounds like it's something that would have come right off Rosanna, the way Steve Porcaro and David Paich, and the keyboardists of Toto, played some of their incredible solos on the Toto records, right? So that's what Frankie and the Knockouts has. It's got an incredible keyboard solo, incredible synthesizer solo, not a guitar solo like perhaps Toto would have done and can do with Steve Lukather. But 100%, Frankie and the Knockouts' Sweetheart is a quintessential. It's got every element. It's got the vocals. It's got the arrangement. It's got the production. It's got the lyrics. It has this surging pop rock in Southern California, LA rock sound that Toto sort of came to recognize there as a result of all those guys coming out of the LA studio scenes and then creating their own band. It has, this song by Frankie and the Knockouts has every single element of a great Toto song. And every time I hear it, I think this is like a missing Toto track. But the thing that makes it all so perplexing is, how can I even say that or think that? Why does that perception exist when it was Frankie and the Knockouts' Sweetheart that came before any of those Toto big hits other than Hold the Line? Okay? So why does it seem like it's a Toto vibe when it's not a Toto vibe? The Toto vibe wasn't even fully realized. And I would argue it didn't even really fully exist until Rosanna. I think Rosanna's when they just blew it up. And that's when they said, okay, here's everything that this group is capable of doing in under 5 minutes. To me, that's the quintessential, as far as an up-tempo song. I think I'll Be Over You is their best ballad. But I think Rosanna is their quintessential up-tempo song. And so along comes Frankie and the Knockouts. And this is the year prior to Rosanna. And it's got every element of that, just the best that Toto could ever have been. And yet it was first. I can't break that association. My brain always goes to Toto as if it was Frankie and the Knockouts that were capturing the Toto vibe, but the Toto vibe wasn't there yet. So I don't know. I'm not suggesting for 1 second that it was Toto that captured the Frankie and the Knockouts vibe. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to flip it and say I figured out some weird thing here and that it was Toto that was influenced or copying or anything remotely like that, because those Toto guys are way too talented on their own and they deserve far more respect than that. So I'm not even for 1 second hinting at that. I'm just saying, whatever that sound is, how did Frankie and the Knockouts come into it so perfectly and so strongly and so clearly with this great, just incredible first single of their career, Sweetheart, in 1981? I will never understand it. Maybe by talking about it today, this will break the spell, and maybe now I can really just get completely into the Frankie vibe and quit thinking about the Toto vibe at all, because that association just drives me crazy sometimes. It comes to mind every single time I hear Sweetheart. So before we get to Sweetheart, let's just note that Franke Previte and the Knockouts there did try to follow Sweetheart up. They were not a total one-hit wonder band. They did follow Sweetheart up with a couple other single releases that made it up there into about the top 25, top 30 on the pop chart. Nothing major, but not terrible either. But then, as I will tell you when the song is over at the end here, before we clean it all up, there's another incredible twist to this story that comes at the end. So I will save that one, as I've always gone on way too long here about Toto and Frankie and the Knockouts. So let's do it. Let's jump into the song, because this song is just freaking incredible. There they are, Franke Previte right there in the middle. Frankie and the Knockouts, straight from New Jersey. And the song is Sweetheart. And if you don't remember this one, folks, here it's going to come back in a flood. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Now, if I told you, if you never had heard of Frankie and the Knockouts, not one time had never heard that name of a band, and I said, hey, have you ever heard this old Toto song? And I played you this, you'd have zero problem believing that this was not Bobby Kimball and Steve Lukather and David Page and Jeff Porcaro on drums and the whole crew. You would believe me 100% that this was a Toto song if you'd never heard that it was anybody else. It's just unbelievable. And yet they did it before Toto did it. And I just cannot figure that out. Listen to this brother sing. How about Franke Previte? He turns this stuff loose. Wait till you hear him blow this out the rest of the song. Okay, let's give credit where credit is due. Franke Previte is a badass singer, okay? Badass, man. That guy has got range and power and balls and phrasing and a falsetto. That dude, what a kick-ass singer. I mean, that's the kind of a singer. You go to a show and a guy comes out and is singing like that, the first thing you think is, holy shit, this singer is just huge, man. What a vocal performance by Franke Previte. That's the first thing. And secondly, how about that band? And yeah, it ain't the Toto guys, but I'm sorry, you got two keyboards in there, the pounding piano and that great synth work, just like you'd get in Toto. You got a bass and drums are just pumping back there in the rhythm section, and that guitar, the rhythm guitar is just surging the whole song along. You get those charismatic lead vocals like Bobby Kimball used to pull off every now and then for Toto, with the range and the power and that high end. I mean, that is one hell of a dynamic pop rock. That is just a quintessential sound in itself. A pretty muscular, how was I going to say, not the technical part of it, but yeah, there's some chops in that group. Okay, these guys could all play, and Franke Previte just kicking some butt up front on the vocals. Now, here's the weirdest thing of all. So this song comes out in 1981, as I said, a top 10 hit, right? They followed it up with a couple singles, top 30 hits, not a huge impact. Eventually, Frankie and the Knockouts come apart, and Franke Previte goes his own way. In 1987, you remember that movie Dirty Dancing and what the hullabaloo there was over that film, and that soundtrack sold a gazillion copies? Guess who the co-writer of the song from Dirty Dancing? This is the summer of 87 now. This is 6 full years after this song, Sweetheart. Remember that song, I've Had the Time of My Life, Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes, that was a #1 pop hit and a #1 adult contemporary hit, and it must have been #1 for months. I swear to God, that song was huge. Oh yeah, and it won an Academy Award, won the Oscar for the best song. I think it won a Golden Globe for the best song from a film. Yeah, co-written by Franke Previte, the same Franke Previte that just kicked our butt out front on these vocals. Oh, and the other big hit song from that soundtrack, Dirty Dancing, that was a song that Eric Carmen took all the way up to #4 on the pop chart and #2 on the adult contemporary chart. You might remember the big Eric Carmen hit, Hungry Eyes, okay? Also co-written by Franke Previte. So Franke Previte clearly not only one hell of a great pop rock singer up front there. I mean, that dude's got like, I won't even say the name. I was going to say the name. I was going to compare him to someone. I'm not going to do it. He deserves to stand on his own. What a hell of a singer. Franke Previte, clearly not a one-hit wonder, because he comes back there 6 years later with those 2 huge hits from the Dirty Dancing soundtrack, and wins all those awards for the best song and from the film and all of that. And just incredible. And then when I tie all of that back together in my brain with this whole Toto thing, I just can't, I cannot wrap my brain around it. It's just a big bowl of spaghetti. I swear, it's musical spaghetti. But let's give these guys props. Forget about Toto for a second. Forget about Dirty Dancing. Let's talk about these dudes right here. Franke Previte, man. I'm ready to play that song again right now and listen to him sing his ass off all over again. What a lead vocal. What a song. And that band back there kicking butt. I always love this song. And that damn Toto thing almost ruins it for me every time. But there you have it, folks. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Am I crazy? I already know I am crazy, but I mean, am I crazy with this whole Toto thing? Am I just hearing things? What's wrong with me? What are we going? Oh, yeah, wait till you hear the next one, where it's going to get even crazier. See you soon. Bye. Who loves you from the start? That thing is pumping. Are you kidding me?